Hi guys, this is Fazan and welcome to today's session on Introduction to React.js. Okay, so before I start, can you guys quickly confirm in the chat if I'm audible or not? Is everything okay? Can you see me? Can you see the slide deck? Can you see the pointer right here? Okay, can you see the pointer? Is it, if everything is okay, then we can get this session going. While we wait for others to join, I will give you a quick tour. Till that time, I will give a quick tour of Great Learning Academy, how it looks. Okay, so just type in Great Learning Academy in your Google Chrome. The first link that you see, just click on it. It will redirect you to this page wherein you can find all the advanced PG courses. Right click and open in a new tab. And these are all the top ranked programs, right? We have programs associated with data science, business analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, management, cloud computing, software development, right? So these are all PG courses, right? And if you're looking for free content, we also have free content available. And before that, we have the upcoming live sessions. Today I'm taking React.js. Tomorrow I'll be taking on getting started with CSS, right? So that is tomorrow. And also on Saturday 4 p.m. we have introduction to IoT, okay, Internet of Things. So after that, we have some popular courses available as well. These are our popular courses, right? Basics of professionals, digital marketing, Photoshop, right? Python programming in Hindi. All these courses are top ranked or popular courses, right? We also have some courses available in machine learning, AI. We also have courses in IT and software, right? We have information security, data structures in Java, algorithms in Java, Python fundamentals, cyber security, ethical hacking, right? And if you're looking for some courses that are in Hindi, we have courses available in Hindi as well. Okay, we have some courses available in machine learning, Java, C++, React JS, okay, digital marketing. So all these courses are in Hindi. Okay, so you guys can check it. Okay, so once you register yourself and go through the course, after the completion of your course, you have to answer 6 questions correctly out of 10. Okay, and once you answer those 6 questions correctly, you will get a completion certificate as well. Okay, with that being said, now let's start with our session on introduction to React.js. Okay, so I can see some yeses. Okay, great. So now what are the things that we are going to cover in this session? So it is just an introductory session on React.js. We also have courses available on our academy wherein you will get a certificate, completion certificate, and we also have our courses on React.js on our YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe them and you will get all the courses that are available. Okay, so first we are going to talk about prerequisites, then we are going to talk about what is React and why should we use React. Okay, we'll talk about single page applications, we'll talk about local setup, then we'll talk about this beautiful tool that is create React app. Okay, then we'll talk about some next generation JavaScript features, and finally we'll talk about basics of React. Okay, with that being said, okay, so now let's see what are the things that you should know. Okay, so if you have no idea regarding HTML, we have courses available on our academy as well as free courses and also on our YouTube channel. Okay, so we have HTML courses available, introductory, that is the basic knowledge you should have of HTML, which is nothing but hypertext markup language, right? You should know the basic tags like div, span, image tags, and anchor tags, all these tags, right? Div, span, these are most important because they help us to group let's suppose we have different tags, heading 1 to 6, and then we have some paragraph tags. If you want to club them together, you will be using div. Now if you don't want any space, right, the only difference between div and span is that one of them is inline, span tag is inline. Okay, so if you want to club them and they must be inline, that means you are not starting them every time you are implementing div tag, that will start from the new line. Okay, so if you don't want that, you can use span. Okay, so you should know the basics of HTML, attributes, what are the attributes, okay, all those things, right? So if you don't know anything about HTML, we have courses available on our academy. Okay, done. You should know basics of HTML. Then you should know CSS, that is cascading style sheets. Why it is known as cascading style sheets? Okay, So the different what do you mean by cascading? Okay, so style sheets is obvious that you will have style sheets, that is you will have style properties in a different sheet. Why different sheet? That means different files. Okay, so basically when you deal with HTML, CSS and JavaScript, there is one thing that you should keep in mind. What? That is separation of concerns. Okay, that is nothing but separation of concerns. What do you mean by this thing? This means that if you have an HTML file, keep it in a separate file. If you have a CSS file, keep it in a separate file. And if you have a JavaScript file, keep it in a separate file. Okay, so once you do these things, this is known separation of concern, so that it brings modularity in your code, so that you don't want yourself to be looking on a HTML code and trying to find out errors which are associated with CSS. Done. So cascading means taking over some styles. Let's suppose you have one style and you have one element, and on that element you are applying three different styles: inline, then you have internal CSS applied, then you have external CSS applied. Which style do you think will be applicable on that element? Okay, which style will be applicable? Let's suppose you have this paragraph tag, and in this paragraph tag you are applying inline CSS, as well as you are applying internal CSS, as well as you are applying external CSS. Which will have the priority among these? Can anyone tell me in the chat quickly? Quickly, guys. Quickly. I am waiting for your answers. Quickly, guys. So if I'm looking on this side, that means I'm looking at your chat, guys. So don't worry. So quickly just answer if you have any idea, so that I can deep little bit inline. Exactly, Shikhar. Yes, inline will have the priority. But what about these things? If you have let's suppose if you have a selector, right? We have three basic selectors. Yes, Adarsh. Yes, Abhishek. Exactly. So all of these, let's suppose you have these three selectors: ID, and you select by element, and then you select by what? A class. Now you are selecting your HTML tags with the help of these three selectors. Obviously there are many selectors, like we have pseudo selector, we have class based selector, right? So all these selectors, these are three basic selectors. Let's suppose you are selecting your element with the help of these selectors. Now you're applying some CSS. Obviously now you have selected some elements, and with the help of ID, element and class, and same element you have selected. So which selector will have priority among these? Quickly, just write it in the chat, so that I get a brief intuition about how well do you know these things, HTML and CSS. So which of these things? Quickly, Piyush, Crazy, Rajni, Ranjit, sorry, Probit, Rashmi, Dipanshu, Adarsh, Abhishek, Abhishek, long time, right? ID, exactly, Probit. So ID will have the priority, okay, not the class. Okay, class is used to group the things. Okay, so ID will have Abhishek, no, Adarsh not class, Ranjit not class, ID. Yes, exactly, Abhishek. So now these are the things. Okay, so you should have a basic intuition about CSS as well. So both of these HTML and CSS, we are soon going to release a video on HTML and CSS on our YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe and get those courses. So it will be a 10-hour course wherein you will get a good amount of intuition behind all these concepts. Okay, we are going to add more attributes and more elements in those courses. Okay, when we talk about HTML and in CSS, we will try to create some application wherein we will be using these CSS and okay, no problem, wherein we will be using these HTML and CSS. Okay, so done. Then we should have a good knowledge of, when I talk about good knowledge, you should have a basic and as well as some advanced concept you should know, right? So if you talk about objects, you should know what are objects, how do you create them, what are the different ways you can create objects, right? You can create directly with the help of variable name and all those things, and you can also create objects with the help of literals. Okay, so you should know what are objects. You should know functions. When we talk about functions, you should know three different ways that there are with which you can create functions. What are those? So those are, you have function declaration, right, wherein you have those that function keyword. Then you have function expression, wherein you can use that variable. Okay, then finally you should also have good understanding about arrow function. We'll talk about arrow function in this session as well. Okay, done. So Then control flow statements like if, else, while loops, do while, all those while loops. Okay, then DOM manipulation, how you can manipulate your DOM. So DOM is nothing but document object model, which is nothing but selecting your HTML elements, right? So when you talk about DOM, so everything that is on your HTML page is treated as an object, and now you are selecting that object, that means that element, and then you are manipulating it with the help of events, right? So you can use events as well to manipulate them. Okay, also you have some different attributes with which you can manipulate them. Okay, so you should have good understanding about this thing. So if you have no idea, don't worry, we already have a course on our academy as well, and we have a 10-hour course, 10 plus hour course on JavaScript, wherein each and everything you guys should know is there. Okay, arrow function, yes. So arrow function, also known as lambda function, Ranjit. Okay, so everything that you should know is already there, and it's taught by me. Okay, so you can go through that 10-hour course, and at the end I have made some simple applications. Okay, you guys can add that thing easily into your resumes. Okay, done. So now these things are clear to you guys. Now let's talk about our main topic. Okay, so this is a prerequisite, you should know these things. Okay, and you should have a good understanding about JavaScript. Okay, so because it is basically, I will talk about it. Okay, doesn't make sense if I talk about it right now. Okay, so what is React? Okay, now let's talk about this. What is React? So it is nothing but a JavaScript library. Now it makes sense to you guys now why it is important for you to understand, to have a good understanding about JavaScript. So it is nothing but a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. Okay, DOM manipulation generally through element ID. No, Shekhar, it is not it is not a standard, but yes, it is generally done with the help of IDs, because those are unique in your page. When you talk about IDs, the difference between a class and an ID is that those things are unique. Okay, in your HTML page you cannot have same ID, same named ID. If ID is named something, you cannot have that same named ID in that HTML page. Okay, so now React is nothing but a JavaScript library. Now for building, obviously this is a definition of it. So if you see in this definition, you can see only two things: user interfaces and library. So library is, what is a library and a framework? Can anyone tell me what is the difference between this library and a framework? Quickly guys, in the chat, quickly. So Abhishek, sir, is there any function to get attributes of the current document screen only? Which portion is opened in the screen? For example, can I get all the HTML elements between 100 pixel to... You need to check that. Not sure, Abhishek. You need to check that. Okay, so now I'm using hierarchical classification. Yes, probe it. So basically the root of your HTML page, right? The HTML above that is the root, wherein all those hierarchical structure is formed. Okay, yes, hierarchical classification. Okay, you need to check, right? I'm not sure of, I haven't come across with this attribute. Okay, yeah, okay, cool. So can anyone tell me what is the difference between a library and a framework? Quickly guys. So we have different, right? We have different things, right? Let's suppose we have React, right? And we have Angular, we have Vue. Why we use React? Why it is having much more popularity in terms of, when we talk about, if we talk about Stack Developer, right? Or Stack Overflow, right? Library is a function. Okay, you can say that. Okay, you can say that. Okay, but not exactly a function. Okay, is a collection of functions. Okay, great. Okay, we have something. Okay, cool. So now the difference, the main difference of using a library and not a framework is that when you talk about framework, okay, SDK plus library, yes. So when you talk about framework, if we talk about simple definition of framework, so whenever you are using a framework in your application, the control of your application is dependent on the framework. Now that frameworks decides your, yes, Angular is a framework, yes, that application, that framework decides your, is a collection of library, yeah, is a library basically, and which in turn have different libraries inside it, you can say that. Okay, now framework is nothing but what, when you talk about yes, Angular is a framework, Ranjit. Okay, so now when you talk about framework and you're using a framework, the control of your application is dependent on the framework, which is other way around in the library. The flow of your application is within the caller, right? If I'm calling something, the flow is with me, so the application flow is intact. Okay, so that is the main difference, wherein if you are using a framework, then it has a dependency on that framework, when to call it, he is responsible for that. Okay, but it doesn't happen in library. Let's suppose you want to use a simple library of math, wherein you want to get the cosine value of, let's suppose, 20 or 30 or 15, okay, or 90. So you just call that mat.cosine, and then you pass in the arguments, and then you get the value. You're not, you don't care about how internally he is working, that math function, that cosine is working internally and getting you and fetching you the value. You don't care about it, you just use this function, that's it. Okay, so which is not in the case of framework. The dependency is on the framework, right? And which is not in the case of library. So it is, a library is a pre-written code that is already there, right? And it has been compiled, and it has gone through all the error checks and all those things. Okay, so it is good to go, and you just have to use it. Okay, can we use React in Django framework? React and Django. So basically, when you talk about Django, it is moreover a backend tool, right? And React is moreover for a front end. Okay, so React can be, I haven't tried it, but Python definitely you can use Django. Okay, cool. So this is what a React is. So basically it is a library, and library is nothing but a pre-written code which is already there and has been compiled and all those things. Is React.js and AngularJS are same or different? So the main difference, Priyanka, is that one of them, right? If you talk about React, it is a library, and if you talk about Angular, it is a framework. So this is the main difference, and React is predominantly much more faster than Angular. Okay, and right now we are in such a era, or you can say it's in such a domain phase, wherein we are using React, and I will tell you what are the applications that use React, and more than 20,000 components are written in this. One of the famous website that you talk about, or application, that is Facebook, 20,000 components are written in React. Okay, so we'll talk about those things as well. Okay, so React, this is what is React. Now why should we use React when we have AngularJS? I have already spoken about it. The framework is one of the reasons, the speed, the if you talk about single page applications, right, which is much more faster when you talk about single page applications. Okay, so React is used much more when you talk about single page applications. Okay, so it has something, obviously now the flow of application will remain, right? You have a more control over the flow of application when you are using React. Okay, it is using we can reuse our components. Okay, optimization is there. Let's suppose you have a panel, and in that panel you are having name, roll number, and subject. Okay, now same panel can be used for a different person, so we can use those components. Now components, we'll talk about these. What are these components? We have basically two components, a class based component and a functional based components. We'll talk about it when we move along with this session. Okay, so don't worry about for now. Okay, so we can reuse our components. It is very easy to learn. As you can see, we just have a good understanding of JavaScript. That's it. Okay, that's it. So it is trusted by companies like Facebook, Netflix, PayPal, and Tesla. And we have much more job opportunities as compared to Angular. Okay, in React, and Vue is not much that in the, if you talk about Google Trends, right? If you see the Google Trends, much more trending right now is React as compared to, it is only the Google Trends, that is what you search. But if you look at job opportunities on LinkedIn, on different things, right? So Indeed is there, and we have some startups as well, cut short is there, all those things. You will see much more job opportunities in terms of React developer. Okay, as compared to Angular. Okay, and it's mainly used for single page applications. Single page application is the application like Gmail, it's the single page application. We'll talk about what are these single page applications in the next slide. Okay, so it is mainly used for single page application. Now what is this single page application? Okay, is everything clear till now, guys? Quickly confirm. So I have this dependency of one slide over the other. So what is React, then why should we use it? Now I have mentioned single page applications. Now we will talk about what are these single page applications, because moreover you might be thinking, okay, what is this single page application, what are these components? We'll talk about these one by one. Okay, if everything is clear, just give me a quick yes. Go ahead in the chat quickly, guys, just write a yes or no. Yes, clear. Okay, great. Now, what about the single page application? Okay, great. So single page application is nothing but a single request to the server. Now, what happened? What usually happens in a traditional system, right? So if you talk about any website, right? So what happened earlier, when we're not talking about single page applications, okay? So you write in something and you type in, let's suppose you're typing in, I want to know the answer of this question, following question, yeah, press enter, it goes to the server, right? It goes to the server and gets and fetches the result. Next time around, okay, you will see on the same website you're trying to fetch something else, again it will go to the server and fetch you. So now this time of fetching something and getting back to you, fetching something and getting back to you, this is the traditional system. Now what happened in single page application, there's a single request to the server, that's it. Okay, a single request. Now HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are responses for the from the server. So in this case, when we talk about this front end thing, okay, so React.js is a JavaScript framework. No, Mayuk, it is not a JavaScript framework. It is a JavaScript library. There's a huge difference. Okay, you can just type in difference between a library and a framework. You will get the idea of what is a framework and what is a library. So in library, the control of your application is with you. Okay, so chatbox is the example of React.js. Yes, we will talk about different single page applications. Okay, so moreover, it is used in single page applications like Gmail is a single page application. Okay, Facebook is a single page application. You see how oftenly we use Gmail, Facebook, and Twitter. Okay, these are all single page applications, and in Facebook, more than 20,000 components, keeping aside the fact that this is something that is developed by Facebook developers. Okay, so what are the skills required to become a React developer? So Saurabh, obviously you should okay, Gayatri is it? Okay, hi Gayatri. So is there a difference between a React and React.js? Yes, you can say that there is a difference between a React native and React JS. Okay, React native is something that is therein you will write moreover that has a dependency on that let me put it in a naive way. So React native is something that is used for mobile development, okay, and React JS can be used anywhere for creating your websites and all those things. Okay, so what are the skills required to become a React developer? So obviously you should have a good understanding of front end, right? So what do you mean by front end? You should know HTML, you should know CSS, a good introduction. Okay, if Bootstrap is there, that's an add-on. Okay, we recently released a video on Bootstrap in Hindi. Okay, you guys can check that as well. Okay, so Bootstrap, you should know, you should have a good understanding of Bootstrap. If if it that will help you. Okay, that is an add-on. Okay. Then finally you should have a good understanding. What I mean by good, that you should know in and out of JavaScript, how it works, how you can run these things, what is the difference between running it on a browser and when you are not using a browser, what happens, right? We know that we can run JavaScript on a browser. That was the dependency, or we had something that was associated with, or you can say we were restricted to browser. Then what happened? There came Node.js, right? Node.js is there wherein you can run your JavaScript outside the browser. Now with that Node.js, you can easily run your JavaScript outside the browser. That helps and that makes JavaScript much more important. Now if you have a good understanding of JavaScript, you can easily pick React.js and Node.js, thus making you a full stack developer. If you're looking only for front end, skip the Node.js part and focus on React.js. Okay, I'm not in support of Angular, okay, because there are less opportunities in terms of job. Okay, is there any difference between React? Okay, that is done. Is there any possibility of template inheritance using React? Yes, that can be done, but that is something we are not doing in this session. Maybe in the coming sessions we can work on that. Okay, as well. Okay, so now let's focus back on these things. So now you will be, whatever is on the server, you will be fetching these things, what HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Virtual DOM is created. Now this is nothing but a virtual thing, right? So we have a DOM. Now we know what a DOM is. Basically that is used to select the elements on your HTML page, right? Is there APK example? Probate says, is that APK is an example of React.js? No, that thing is APK is the different thing. Okay, let's not try to mingle things, probe it. Let's try to keep it simple for now. Maybe with 2-3 sessions you will get a good understanding of React. Okay, cool. So now virtual DOM is there. Now with the help of this virtual DOM, what are the changes that you want? Okay, you have DOM, right? And that is your original DOM, and that is as a single request is going to the server and that is coming back. And then you, with the help of virtual DOM, you create that helps us to create any further request, and that is handled by React. Okay, so now what happens with the help of this virtual DOM? This is possible. A single request on the server is possible. Now obviously React only updates that object in the actual DOM. Okay, so you have a virtual DOM, and therein you will fetch something from the from with the help of React. That object is manipulated, and then what happens with the help of that virtual DOM, the actual React updates that object in the actual DOM. Okay, so you see the dependency there. Now the bandwidth that is there to get and to again go to the server and fetch something, the time that is associated, all those things are reduced. Okay, so thus improving our performance. Does it help in data science? Not sure. No, I don't think so. Okay, data science is entirely different thing. So, and thus improving your performance. Okay, so if you talk about single page application, right, Gmail, Facebook, these are some examples wherein React is used very much. Okay, so now if you're talking about, now these things are done, why should you use React, what is React, and what is a single page applications, you will get, you got a good intuition about these things. Okay, now let's see the local setup, how you can do this local setup. That means how you can download something and then start running your React applications. Okay, so first of all you should know you are going to download the Node.js, because in that you have a node package manager, which is nothing but a collection of packages, right? JavaScript packages are there, wherein you will find React, React DOM, React JS. Okay, all these packages are available. Yes, Moyuk rightly said. So it is used for web development, obviously. Okay, so now what happens? So you will download this Node.js and install Node.js. With the help of Node.js, you will get this npm or yarn. Okay, and it helps us to manage JavaScript packages. Now, what does this Node.js plus what happens? This Node.js contains what? Libraries, wherein you will have React as well, React.js. All these libraries are available in npm, okay, node package manager, and plus so many things, and it keeps on updating. You can add some libraries, so therein now you won't be focusing on these libraries and rewriting this thing that is available there, and it is written by someone else. It is pre-compiled, error-free code that you can use. Okay, done. So that is one main thing of using Node.js. The second thing is the most important thing, that the development server. Now you will be writing anything on your local system, and when you try to publish it, when you are uploading this on and making it a real, right, making it live, right, and at that time there is a small difference. Okay, you don't have to change your code like hundreds of lines of code. It's just there's a small difference between this local setup and your application original setup. Okay, so that is the second point. You will get the development server as well. Okay, the second thing that you should download is any editor, or you can say any good editor, like Atom is there, Visual Studio is there, Sublime is there. Okay, so the more I don't support anything, right? I don't want you guys to go for Visual Studio. If you're comfortable in Atom, you can go for that as well. Okay, sorry. Now what happens, the more powerful your editor is, right? I'm continuously monitoring your chat, guys, so don't worry if I'm looking here and there. Okay, so if the more powerful your editor is, the more additional features you get, like auto completion is there, highlights is there, auto indentation is there, like, so you can see these things easily, right? So auto completion, you don't have to remember anything, right? So all these things are available on each and every editor. Yes, Sublime can be used. Yes. So React.js is a connection oriented or connection less. So it is a connection oriented thing, right? So it is a connection oriented. I will get into those things in later part of this course. Okay, so don't worry, probe it. Okay, so now this thing is done, right? The local setup is done, right? Now we are going to use this create React app. Now why we are going to use this? So basically this is the best practice, and it is highly beneficial for you guys to use this. Why should you use this? Because with the help of this create react app, and it is considered to be the best practice. And if you want to get started with the react, obviously you should go for create react app first, right? And then you can just figure out the things that without using create react app. Okay, so it is the best practice, and it is used predominantly for single page applications. Okay, it can be used and it can create single page applications very quickly. You don't need to install anything, right, or configure tools. It's just a go-to thing. Create react app, you will use this. We don't require any webpack or babel. So what is this webpack, what is this babel? We'll talk about it in the next slide. So it is developed by Facebook, okay, this create react app, and it is used obviously to give us a head start, right, thus saving a lot of time. Okay, so this is the thing why we are using create react app. Now we'll talk about this is what a create react app tool helps us. Now, why do we use this tool? Okay, that is the most important thing, right? So basically webpack is nothing but, let's talk about single page application. In that single page application, what do you have? You will have HTML file, right? So no. Okay, so you have HTML, you have CSS files, you have JavaScript file. So now you want to bundle these files, okay, into a single page. Okay, now what happens? Now bundling is there. Webpack helps in that. It helps us to minify our code. Okay, could we make single page application using PHP plus react.js? Maybe yes, but PHP, you can do that. You can try, you can see what else you can create, but using PHP, it is quite slower when you are talking about PHP, and it is not scalable. Okay, when you talk about scalability, react.js is much more scalable. Okay, cool. So now what happens, and now you are minifying this into a single file, and then finally you are going to compile it. Okay, so now obviously when you talk about browser, what browser can understand? It can understand only JavaScript. So you need a compiler. So babel is that compiler. When you talk about this babel, right, this babel is there. So babel is that compiler which helps us to convert JSX code. That is something that we talk about in this session at the end. Okay, so this JSX code, it is nothing but the HTML code which is written in lowercase, right? If you talk about simple naive example, if I talk about this in a naive way, so it is nothing but a HTML code that is written in lowercase. So that JSX code is converted into JavaScript code with the help of this compiler babel. Okay, so now you don't need this webpack that is required to bundle and minify and compile your code. You don't need this babel that is used to compile your code. Obviously, you with downloading Node.js and installing it, you will get Node package manager and the development server, and then finally you will be using this create react app. Okay, so now only with the help of this Node.js and this create react app, you are skipping these things. Okay, development server and Node package manager is there with the help of Node.js, so these two things are not required. Okay, so with the help of this create react app, right, you don't have to configure or install any more tools. Okay, that is why it is known as it is said to be the best practice. And with the help of this create react app, you can easily skip these things. You don't need any compiler because JSX code is there which needs to be get compiled into JavaScript so that browser can understand it. So you don't need babel. So anything, right, anything extra you don't have to do. You just have to download Node.js and one editor which is always there, right? Anything, if you are doing any programming, one editor will always be there in your systems, right? So without using anything else, you just use create react app. Now, how to get started with this create react app? Now I assume that you have downloaded Node.js. You can go on the website, that is nodejs.org, and download it. Okay, according to the system configuration you have. So then you open your Node.js command prompt. In my, you will see C users and Faizan. Okay, so now you'll also get this message that your setup has your environment has been set up for using Node.js. Okay, done. So you open, this is the first step, you open your Node.js command prompt. What is the second command prompt? If you're using Mac, you have to write sudo. Okay, enter in the terminal. Else you will have to write npm, right? This is npm, right? You can write npm install, and then you will write create react app and G hyphen G. Now what is this G? You're creating this, you're running this command on the terminal to install create react app. Right now, once it is installed, G means you're doing it globally. Okay, now if anytime you will run from D drive or E drive, it will still support that thing. Okay, what is the difference between client side rendering and server side rendering? uh, I'll give you brief, I will give you a little bit in intuition, Mahajan, I'll give you a little bit intuition about this thing. So client side is something that is that the user sees. Okay, or if you're coding, right, let's suppose you are try to fill the form. Okay, now you are filling the form, right? That is on your client side. Okay, he will get only the front end part of it. Okay, that you're filling in the form, and then when you try to submit it. Okay, now therein, if you have something, obviously you can have either, you can have your database in your same system when you're trying to learn. At that time this thing happens, or you will have some server. Okay, maybe in California, depending upon on which company you're dealing with. Okay, obviously the servers are around the globe. Okay, so now when you're trying to submit it, it will go to the server, and your information will be stored, because the system, obviously the memory that is associated with your system is limited. But on servers you can have tons of data with cloud and all those things. Okay, so that is something that is known as server side rendering. Okay, so we'll talk about these things as well when we are covering, maybe not in this session, maybe in the coming sessions as well. Okay, we'll talk about how we can render components and all those things, and we'll see. But we are going to use the local system, that is our own system, right, in this case. Okay, cool. So now once you have written npm, that is the node package manager, and install is the command that you write. Okay, and then create react app, and then G, making it globally. Okay, so then you press enter and you will get these things. Okay, done. So what is the second step? Third step is that you navigate to the path where you want to create your application. Okay, where you want to create your application. So in this case, what I have written, I first navigated to D drive, and then what I did, CD is to create a directory, and then I named this as react app, and then I navigated to that create that react app. Okay, okay, cool. So now once you navigated to that react app. Okay, now the fourth step is that you will create the command along with the project name. So how do you do that? First you will create the react app, you will write create react app. So this slide deck will be shared with you guys if you have any problem. So that is why I have written these steps. Okay, so if you have any problem running these things, just write it in the comment. Okay, and will be more than happy to answer your comments. Okay, so don't hesitate in writing comments and all those things. Okay, so now you write your project name, that is react project, and then you press enter. So all of these things will happen, right? The whole thing, that it will be installing this, right? It will be installing templates, testing, right? All those things will be created, templates, scripts that are there, all those things will be created, and finally you will get this message. So you see cd react, so react project is start, and then just you have to write npm start. Okay, so you will see these are the npm ejects. You will get these commands to test your code. Okay, connect with the application. So Probit says, I thought IPv4, IP6, TP, SMTP protocols are used to connect with the development server in case of React. Yes, that is also those things are also used. Okay, but we have something that is a local system wherein these things might not be used that much, but on the server these protocols are also used. Okay, so that is something. Then when we go into the depth, okay, right now we are just getting you guys started with these this react. Now obviously this is not this, right? Within an hour you cannot understand the whole react. Okay, react is, that is practically impossible. But what I'm trying to do, give you a good intuition how to get started. Okay, so what are the things that you should know, and how you can proceed, and maybe in the future sessions we'll cover all these protocols as well. Okay, how they are used in single page applications. Okay, cool. So once you will get this message as happy hacking. Okay, that means your create react app has been installed. Okay, then to check you will use this run npm command, and you will navigate to your, first you will navigate to your project that we created, the React project, that I named my project as React project. And then I will write this npm start. Okay, so once I click on this and it says compiled successfully, and it will open this localhost 3000 on your Chrome, obviously your default browser that you have picked. In my case it was Google Chrome, and you will have this thing running. Now you will see these things, right? This image, this thing is there. Now let's talk about what are these things and what are the other things that are there. Okay, so now once you will see this compiled successfully, now always keep your browser open, and whenever you are making any changes, those will be directly compiled and rendered here. So you don't have to again save your file, just save your file and those changes will be on your browser itself. Okay, you don't have to just again save and refresh your page, it will be done automatically. Okay, done. So these are the 5 steps. Okay, so quickly, is everything clear until this point? Probit, Mahajan, quickly guys, Mayok, I can see only these guys answering. Shikhar, quickly. Ranjit, Dipanshu, Priyanka. It's a introductory class probit. So these things might not be understood by everyone. So that is why I kept it on like something that is baseline things. Okay. So obviously these protocols will be always there, right? So whenever you are sending a Gmail, you will be using SMTP protocol, right? Whenever you're sending mails, right? So therein these protocols will be always there. Okay, cool. Shikhar says yes. What about the rest? We have 49 participants. So quickly, so run on a physical IP or a network IP. So run on physical IP or network IP. It runs on maybe network IP, I guess. Quickly guys, Mayuk, Abhishek, Dipanshu, okay, Dipanshu just said yes. Crazy Tech World, Gayatri. Quickly, guys, just write a yes or no in the chat. Okay, I'm assuming that rest of the guys understood everything if you're not writing it in the chat. Okay, cool. So now let's move ahead. Okay, great. So now let's move ahead and let's talk about these next gen JavaScript features. Now these things are very important. Okay, now these things are mostly used when you talk about React. These JavaScript, next generation JavaScript features are used constantly and they are used over and over again. Okay, so first let's talk about this let keyword. Okay, please provide these installation slides in the description. So the whole slide deck that is there will be shared with you guys, so don't worry. Okay, Shikhar, cool. So now that is why I have kept it. Okay, so that is why that's the reason that I have kept it step 1, step 2 in the slides. Okay, so you don't have to go anywhere else. Okay, cool. So now the first thing, obviously, now when you talk about var keyword, when you have this for loop, some of those who have attended my earlier live sessions, they might have good intuition what I'm saying. So I am creating a keyword with the help of var, and in the for loop I am doing something, and then I'm outside the for loop I am trying to access this console.log, I'm trying to access this I. What will be the output? Will I get an error, or it will give the value of I? Quickly, Gayatri, Abhishek, you guys have attended, I know. Probit, not sure of. So quickly, just give me an answer. So I have created a variable with the help of var keyword, and then I have created it within the while loop, okay, or for loop in this case. Okay, now I'm trying to access this I outside the for loop. What should be the answer? Will it give me the error, or will it will give the value of I? Yes, value of I, exactly. So now this is not something that we are familiar with other programming languages there. This is something that is kind of a error. It seems like an error, right, to access something that is outside the scope, right? So this is known as the scope of var was global. So you see the global scope is there, but with the with the existence of this let keyword, when I'm using the same thing with the help of now instead of using a var keyword, I'm using let. Okay, so now I'm using a let keyword to create a variable I. Now when I'm trying to access this I outside the for loop, it will give me the error. So it with the help of this let keyword, we were able to maintain the block scope. Now this is very important because we are right now we are if we talk about any programming language apart from JavaScript, we were familiar with this thing that whatever we define in a scope, right, the local scope and the global scope, these are two different scope, right? And whenever we define a value that is inside the for loop, outside the for loop we cannot access that. So that is something that is tricky, or you can say it is something that is associated, that can be termed as an error. So to remove that error, let came into existence and he said, okay, I'm going to make this I as a block scope. I'm giving it a scope that is block level. Okay, done. So this is one additional advantage using let. What is the second thing? Declaration. If you talk about declaration, now if I'm declaring this one with the help of let, and I'm declaring this again with the help of var, so what should be the value? What should be the answer? So I'm declaring this declare again here with the help of let keyword, and I'm declaring it again here with the help of var keyword. So what should be the answer? Should it be error, or should it be we should get an output? That means it doesn't throw us an error. What should be the answer? Quickly write in the chat. So these are some questions that you might someone might ask when you're trying to interview, or when you're going for an interview. Okay, or the interviewee might want to know the knowledge that you possess. How is it in depth or not? So obviously you will not get an error because these are in different scopes. Okay, when you talk about scope, obviously now whenever you are creating something that is not inside any block, that is considered to be the window object. Okay, and now when you're considering anything in the block in the for loop, that is something that is related to your execution block, or you can say that lexical scope is there. One is lexical scope, and if you have no idea what I'm talking about, go see my video on on JavaScript, which is a 10-hour course. Okay, see how this lexical scope and the window scope is there, how they are different. Okay, so now keeping that thing aside, so again, so these are in two different scopes, that is one is inside this block and one is outside. Let me consider it as a global scope. Okay, so that is why it doesn't throw us any error. But when we are in the same scope, that is we are on the window scope. Okay, so at that time when I declared this var declare, right, once, and once with the help of let, I declared this variable declare, the name of the variable is declare. At that time when I declared it within the same block, at that time it thrown an error. Okay, is this thing clear? That means whenever you're declaring anything within two different scopes, it is okay. If you want to declare two variables with the same name, it's okay, but they should be in a different scope. If they are in the same scope, then it will throw you an error. Okay, redeclaration, yes, exactly, Abhishek, is possible. But if you're in a different scope, then it is possible. If you're in a same scope, then it is not possible. Ambiguity occurs. Yes, Probit. Quickly confirm if this thing is clear, then we should move on to the uh, next feature, next generation JavaScript feature. Quickly, we are running out of time. This is only a one session. I'm trying to cover each and everything that you should know before you get into the React, before you start your coding in React. So these things, let, const, will be used constantly. Okay, we're going to use them again and again. Okay, quickly just write a yes or no in the chat. Is this scope thing clear to you guys? Is this declaration thing clear to you guys? Okay, Sheikh says again. So what I'm trying to say, when you're trying to redeclare, right, we have a variable x and it is within the for loop. Okay, and when I'm trying to redeclare this variable again but outside this block, okay, at that time it will throw an error, because at that time it will not throw an error because these are having two different scopes. Okay, one is at the global level, other is at the execution level. Okay, now if you're declaring it in the same window scope, that is this time. Okay, let me just clear my screen. In this case, right, so in this case they are on the same window object. Okay, window. The scope of this is global, and at that time you see when I'm declaring it with the help of var keyword, and here I'm declaring it with the help of let keyword, I'm re-declaring this variable. Okay, so this declares the name of the variable. If you don't know how to declare a variable, so that is var keyword and then the name of the variable and then the value associated with it. So why I'm writing var even if I'm using string or anything else? Because this JavaScript is dynamically typed language. Okay, that means you don't have to explicitly specify that this is an integer. In this case, this is a number. So the data types in JavaScript are number, string, boolean. Okay, so you don't have to explicitly specify that this is a number, since it is dynamically typed language. So now when I'm declaring this again, so is this let keyword is the only in Priyanka says, is this let keyword only in react.js? No, obviously it will be window.log. Yes, probit. So what happens when you're trying to declare it in the same scope, at that time it will throw you an error. No, it is available in JavaScript as well, right? So since it is a JavaScript library, obviously anything that is supported by React will be supported by JavaScript. Okay, done. So now what about this constant keyword? So this is something that is associated with the reference. If you're not changing the reference of your object, at that time it will never throw you an error. If you're changing the reference, then at that time it will throw you an error. So if you see, we have this, there are two examples. One is associated with an object, one is associated with a variable. So here I have defined a variable named do not change, and I have initialized it with 10, right? And it's a constant. Now when I'm trying to change this to 100, it will throw me an error. It's saying assignment to constant variable is not possible, because right now I'm changing its reference. So it is having a constant reference, the value, so the reference cannot change. So here reference is changing. But if I'm talking about this first case, I created an object named, and in that I created an object named object, right? And in that I have a property named name, and the value associated with it is Jimmy. Okay, so now if I'm trying to insert one more property, so now I'm not changing the reference. So this is a tricky part. I'm not changing the reference here. I'm just adding one more property, which is age. Okay, you might be thinking, okay, we are trying to change its reference. No, that is not the case here. I'm adding one more property. Reference still is the same. Okay, so earlier this object is the name of the variable, and in this case is the object, and it is referring to this location. And in this location earlier we had name, and that is Jimmy. Now we have age as well as 23. Okay, so now I'm not changing its reference, but as soon as you see the last line here, okay, as soon as you see here, now if I'm trying to access this object.name, I'm getting Jim. Okay, because I have reinitialized it. Okay, so I have changed it to from Jimmy to Jim. That is also possible. I'm changing the values as well. Earlier it was Jimmy and now it's Jim. But now if you try to see what is the value in the object, what are the values in the object, you see the values are name is Jim and age is 23. Now as soon as I'm trying to change its reference, now I want this object, and I want this object to be treated as Jimmy, which is obviously possible, right? Because this is JavaScript, you can do anything, because this object is not specified that this is going to be an a number or a string. This is just an object, right? And obviously we have to keep this thing in mind. Everything in JavaScript is object. Okay, could we make constant a return type of function? You need to check that out. I think yes, you can. Okay, but that means you're always returning the same thing. Okay, that doesn't make sense. Okay, so okay, so now you have you tried to change its reference here. Now again it specifies that assignment to a constant variable is not possible, so it will throw you an error. Okay, right? So you need to keep this thing in mind, that the references do not change when you're dealing with constants. Okay, now what about these functions? So this is one of the most important thing in entire JavaScript. What first is that you can either have a function declaration or you can have a function expression. So now function declaration loads at compile time. When you're trying to compile, that means when you're trying to run your program, before that happens a compilation. So this happens during the compilation, and you're using in term when you're dealing with function declaration, you will be using this function keyword. Okay, then you name a name of the function and then whatever you're trying to do, and how you call it with the help of this name, right? Execute, and with this parenthesis you're calling it explicitly, and you will get the output as hello. Done. So this is your function declaration. But what happens during function expression? This happens during runtime. Okay, during runtime, how do you declare this thing? You will use the var keyword, or you can use the let keyword. Okay, now in this case you will have this name, that is obviously when you deal with variables you write the name of the variable, so this is kind of a the name of the variable. Okay, so now, and in that you will store this function with the help of this function keyword, and then this name, this is optional. Okay, you can have it or you cannot have it. Okay, this doesn't affect it doesn't affect anything, right? If you think that you can call this function with the help of this name keyword, no, that is not possible. Okay, it will say undefined function. Okay, so now this is optional. Okay, so let me clear out the screen. Yeah, so this is optional. Okay, then you will write the name, that is console log, then you are trying to print by in here, and then you will, in order to execute this function or call this function, you write execute within parentheses. If you have written name within parentheses, it will throw you an error saying that this function has not been defined. Okay, where name will be the URL. uh, can you just rephrase it, probe it, what are you trying to say? I didn't get you. And where name will be a URL. Okay, so now these are two things, what function declaration and function expression. Now there comes with the most important thing, that is known as arrow function or lambda functions. Okay, so these are something. Now if you're having, let's suppose, now in JavaScript you need to keep one thing in mind, that it doesn't depend on who is calling that function, right? Let's suppose in other programming language, let's suppose if there is one object, and in that object you have one function, and then with the help of that object you will call that function, and inside that function another function is called. Okay, now it doesn't depend on who is calling that function. In JavaScript it depends on where you are writing it, right? That is known as something that is related to, again, scope. Okay, so now wherever you're dealing with this thing, okay, now you have this object and it is calling some function, and in that function, let me take an example. So you have one function, and inside that function you are calling fun1. This is fun1 and fun2. So now object is there that is calling fun1. Okay, you might be thinking in other programming language what happens. So now both of these functions, you can say that both of these functions are called by this object, but in JavaScript it doesn't depend on who is calling this function, it depends on where it is written. So it is written here, and inside that there is no object associated with it, it will be associated with the window object. Now in case of function expression, yes, probe it, yes. So now in case of what, in case of arrow function, right? In case of this, it will be associated with window, right? So if you see that what is the who called this function, you will get the answer as window object. Now in order to see that, okay, who I want this function to be called by this object, you need to bind it, right? So that binding, if you don't understand anything, go back to the JavaScript full course that is there on YouTube. Okay, so that there is something that is known as binding, to bind this function with this object. Now if you don't want that binding over and over again, you will use arrow function. Then if you're calling this function and you're declaring it with the help of arrow function, it will be automatically binded with this object, and this time around it won't be associated with window, it will be associated with this object. Okay, so this is one of the things that is there. So there is also something that is associated with this keyword, so that means the current object, right? So that this thing is also and it also helps in that thing as well, the keyword this. Okay, so now this is all over what happens in arrow function and why it is used. Okay, so how do you write this arrow function? You will use, it is similar to function expression. Now this time around you don't use this function keyword here, that function keyword is gone, and you will use this arrow sign, that's it, after the parenthesis. Okay, and similarly you can call it in the same fashion you were calling function expressions. Okay, done. So I think we are done with this. We are running out of time. It is already 5. So maybe in the next session we'll try to cover more next gen JavaScript features along with some basics of React if time allows. Okay, so Is everything clear until this point? If you have no idea what I just said, binding and all those things, go back to my video on, that's a full course, so the 10-hour course. You can always go through that, and it is available on your YouTube, on our YouTube channel. That is the Great Learning YouTube channel. You guys can check it. Okay. So, if you don't have any questions, we can conclude this session. And if you have anything that is not understood completely, we're not able to understand the parts where I use JavaScript, you can always go back to that YouTube course, okay? YouTube video. That is a 10-hour course. Plus, we have sessions available on our academy as well. Will you cover call and apply here? Not here, Vidhi. In that is there. In this session is over. We are done with this session. This is already we have already the time that was allocated for this session is done. Okay. So if you want to understand call and apply, we have that video available. Okay. It's a 10-hour course. You guys can check it. There is a index also given. You can just straight directly go to that point. Okay, and start learning from that point. Okay. Cool, guys. So thank you so much for your time, guys. I hope you enjoyed this session, and I will see you tomorrow on getting started with CSS. So could we call function in HTML form? Yes, you can. Okay. Cool, guys. So thank you so much, and I will see you tomorrow on getting started with CSS session. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, guys. Okay, cool. Thanks.